René, you're regarded as one of the foremost leadership experts in the world. You advise FTSE 100 company executives and heads of state and governments of all forms. Can you break down your career journey with us?
I started from the most humble of origins. But as we know, sometimes adversity is the greatest teacher in the world. It gives you the opportunity to see things as they really are. And it grounds you, it humbles you, and you're not afraid of vulnerability. But I suppose my first big break was after university. I had the opportunity to work at Marks & Spencer. And I did 10 years there. 10 good but long years. I suppose the bit of advice for everyone kicking off a career today, 10 years is a hell of a long time, no matter where you go. And back in the day when the world wasn't so fast, I think after 5 years I'd learned everything I needed to learn. But Marks & Spencer were very generous to me. They taught me everything about management. Not sure they shared any leadership with me. I was then lucky enough to go onto the board of Pepsi in America, working for the Americans. So I went from working for one of the best of the British to one of the best of the Americans. But at Marks & Spencer's, they were an incumbent. They were number one. And getting to number one, you have to be hungry, you have to be a challenger. But the danger in getting to number one, you can come quite defensive. And you can see the world as the enemy. I went to work for Pepsi, the ultimate challenger brand. Waking up every day facing the might of the most recognized brand in the world, Coca-Cola. In retrospect, I was precisely what they were looking for. Someone who'd come from the most humble origins, who was hungry, who wasn't afraid, who wanted to make a mark, who needed recognition, who was desperate to work in a meritocracy. And in an environment where you were paid bonuses. It was the first time I was in a real meritocracy. There was no hiding place. What you did was what you were rewarded for. Pepsi wasn't brilliant at management, fabulous at leadership. So I'd worked for the best of the British, taught me everything about management, knew nothing about leadership. One of the best of the Americans, knew nothing about management, taught me everything about leadership. I spent the rest of my life trying to put those two things together and share them with as many people towards the beginnings of their careers as possible. And then, would you believe it, I ended up spending all my time working with those at the top of the organisation, not at the bottom.
What does good management look like in your view?
Do you know, it's interesting, Europe still is obsessed with management, not leadership. So I look at some of our traditional organisations and they have good, strong management. And when I say management, I mean, here's 2 or 3 tasks I'd like you to do for me, Derma. When you finish them, come back to me and I'll check them. Then I'll give you 3 more. That's management. It's slow. It doesn't build trust. It's necessary. That level of control is necessary, otherwise you go out of business. But today, it's just too slow and it's not empowering. I prefer to talk about leadership, which would be, here's 3 big decisions I'd like you to go and take, and I'm going to back you, which is very different. And I think the Americans have always been a little bit better at it than we are, but we're catching up very quickly.
So I guess there is a difference in your view of being across the tasks as a manager versus being connected to your employees.
I completely believe that today, if your people believe you trust them and you have their backs, they will give you so much more. Trust is the variable that we should all focus on. When there is no trust, I see underperformance. When there's trust, I see people doing the things that other people said they couldn't do. I think there was a time when the people worked for the leader. Today, the leader works for the people. That's where trust is built.
Now, we're definitely living in a global world where businesses and supply chains are quite interdependent. Is this concept of empowerment something that has come over from America and maybe is something that is, I guess, a good thing of this, that has come out of this interdependent world?
It's a really good question. It's been here a long time. It's been everywhere a long time. I think we see it in families. And, you know, the model of leadership I talk about today, that really works, the empowering model, the trusting model, the leader that works for their people. Think about mothers at home. That's the model I'm talking about. You know, as we sit here today, There are courses on management everywhere. Every university, every business school. The one I lecture at Cass Business School, we teach management. There is no course for leadership. If management is IQ, we think it. Leadership is EQ, we feel it. And I think where I see the models best is women as leaders today. They seem to have this more empowering, more trusting, and more servant leader attitude. They're there to create an environment where their people can succeed. The days of one person at the top of the organisation calling all the shots, solving all the problems, are long gone. The world's too complex and too fast today, and the markets are too unforgiving.
Is it only possible, do you think, to work on a premise of empowerment if you really care about the company? Like, I'm thinking of a situation where I'm a manager in a company and I have a checklist to do, and in order to fulfill my role and for the company to be in good shape and my employees to be in good shape, we need to tick off this list and I need to make sure that everyone has done it, and grand, then I can go home. I think it takes an extra energy to want to empower your employees for the good of the company. So do you think that that is only really possible if you care about the company you're working for and care about the mission?
I think if we break it down, there was a time when we used to say the public sector and the charity sector was values-led but not really performance-driven. And if we looked at the private sector, we'd say they're performance-driven but not really values-led. Today you have to be both no matter where you work. And I suppose, and care is really interesting. If I feel my boss and the organisation cares for me, I'm prepared to put a little bit more in. If I feel the organisation and my line manager cares, trust me, I want to put even more in. So a little story. 3 men working on a building site in the burning sun. Breaking rocks, the toughest work you have ever seen in your life. The journalist comes to the first one and says, "Why do you do this work?" "Got a wife and 3 kids to feed, I took the first job I could get." Goes to the second one, "Why do you do this job?" "I haven't worked for 3 years, I took the first job I could get." Comes to the third one and says, "Why do you do this job?" "I'm helping to build a cathedral. I'm helping to build a cathedral." Mosque, synagogue or temple, dependent on where you are. Give me something to believe in. Give me something to belong to. Give me someone that cares about me. And my job is not repetitive, it's not manual. It's something far bigger than that. But that's the role of the leader. No one should just do a repetitive job. We should be part of something special.
It's interesting to think about that in the context of where we are in the world of work today, in that, you know, people that are trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, how they want to contribute. This is a conversation that is quite new, in fairness. You know, we went to school and we got a job to kind of pay our bills. You know, that was the end goal. But I think it's fair to say that the end goal has changed.
Completely changed. And it's interesting because we have 4 interns in my business. And one's Bengali, one's of Indian origin, one's of Ugandan origin, and one's from Nottingham. So we've got all the races, all the faiths, but they're all 21, 22. They're all coming towards their final year of university, and they're interning with us for a placement year. Number one, they're smarter than us, the rest of us in the office. They're better educated, they're better connected, they're better use of technology, different values, stronger values, I think, led by their values, not necessarily by their pocketbook. They dream a lot, they desire, they're braver than we were, and they behave as though they're more empowered. I don't buy this stuff that the next generations are entitled. I've seen no evidence of that. I see they're more demanding. They know what they want. But what they have is, they're making me feel that perhaps experience is overrated today. In a world that's changing so quickly, the experience that one of my vintage has, how does that apply itself today? And this fusion of bringing those who don't know, who will challenge, who will try different things, who will break it and find a different way, versus those who have a bit of corporate memory, a bit of wisdom, who've been around the block a few times. But the answers come from the fusion, not from one or t'other. And not everyone's prepared to give up status and embrace a different fusion.
Do you have hope looking at the next generation?
More than hope. I think they are the future, they are the solution. But we've got to get over this fact that because they're slightly inexperienced, they can't add value today. They add lots of value today. The biggest thing they do for me and my team is they challenge us. And we've learnt, never be so far away that you can't hear a dissenting voice. Where if I look at some of our big businesses today, where's the dissenting voice? If I look at our political situation, where's the dissenting voice from within, not from without? It's easy to find an enemy outside, but who's challenging you from within to do things maybe a little differently? Really powerful.
We're at a point where our political systems, our institutions, and our key businesses are being challenged, for sure. Do you think that we have reached the point where change is going to happen? Or do you think that right now, the mobilization is happening, but it hasn't reached a critical mass that there's going to be meaningful change just yet?
We're here now, it's happening now. We've seen more chief executives leave FTSE 250 companies this year than any previous year. The change is coming and it's coming fast. And I think if we look socio-politically, we're seeing let me be a little rude here, forgive me, the older autocratic men in politics who are plying us with their nationalism and populism. From Trump to Erdogan to China to Putin, we're seeing them, the 60, 70-year-olds who are obsessed with power and having things done their way. But on the other side of seesaw, we're seeing Varadkar in Ireland, 40, Trudeau, 42, New Zealand, 37, Austria, 33. There's a new generation coming. I'm seeing precisely the same thing in business. The time of we've always done it this way, those days are over. Finding people embracing a different way who are faster, hungrier, prepared to embrace risk more, technology-driven, technology-literate, and beyond faith, beyond gender, beyond race, beyond sexual inclination. It's a new wave. And we are stronger together. The challenge I'm seeing that I would set for everyone today, stop looking for the best person for the job. Old world. Look for the best person for the team. It completely changes your lens. The search agencies, the recruitment agencies are still giving us the best person for the job. That's always, in my world, the cleverest man in the room. And I choose my words carefully. We don't need the cleverest man in the room anymore. We need the best leader. And they come in many different sizes and shapes. I've got to tell you, it's a great story. I was doing a careers fair at the London Business School for the Association of MBAs, and you've got the best of the best coming down trying to poach them. From Goldman Sachs to British Airways, everyone's there trying to poach them. Did a talk for them, went really well, and then someone tapped me on the shoulder. It's the head teacher of a primary school, primary and infant school in Chingford, Ainsley Wood Primary School. And she said, would you do the same talk at a careers fair we're having next Monday? I said, of course. I was down in Chingford in Ilford in East London. And what she didn't tell me was to her 5 and 6-year-olds. So I did a careers talk to these 5 and 6-year-olds. They were phenomenal. It was 10 minutes and I was showing them, you're not too young to have a dream. The dream career, the dream profession. There was a careers fair. There was the NHS, the ambulance service, the firemen, some of my team was there were some fitness instructors. And these 5 and 6-year-olds went around in threes to each station. It was mesmerizing. You could have heard a feather drop. It gave me such an insight. Giving them a dream of what their profession could be from 5 to 6 will fuel them right through their academic careers. We're never too young. The world has changed.
Now, a big part of the Conservative Party manifesto at the moment is education. And if we're just talking about the UK, levelling up education in the UK, is that far easier to write down on a page than done? Do you think that the education system within the UK right now is still very much, the people that can get the grades and get the tutoring and have the background get into the...
So a couple of stats, a couple of data points. A-levels came out in 1959, they haven't changed since. World has in 60 years, the world has changed fundamentally, but A-levels haven't. The stats coming out of Harvard Business School at the moment are telling us the students who are starting their 3-year degree courses, 65% of them will end up in jobs that don't exist when they started. What price education? Let's ask it in an even more challenging way. If our students have a calculator and Google, what price education as it works today? Memorizing stuff, learning stuff when we can Google it? Maybe it's time to move on a little bit. And you know, we talk about the advent of machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics. I wouldn't fear that at all. I think if we manage this correctly, they will take away human drudgery, but they won't take away human brilliance. So let's use them the right way. Let's work a little less and enjoy a little more.
Is there still a fixed mindset around education, and I need to go to this place and get to this level if I'm going to get that job?
I think there are still far too many businesses and organisations who are saying we want a 2-1 or an honours degree. They need to look at themselves. One of the challenges I'm having at the moment, I've got 4 interns from 4 completely different universities, no Russell Group universities. And they've come to us and we're throwing them into real businesses at the top of the organisation, at the bottom of the organisation. And the challenge I've got is getting them to go back to university and continue their degrees. Once they're sitting in the hot seat and taste the fast-moving pace and smell it, touch it, breathe it, we're not getting them to make sandwiches and do cups of tea. We did a brilliant piece of work with a fantastic retailer called TJX. They own TK Maxx. We got to the door, I had 2 of the interns with me, got to the door and I said to our beautiful colleague from HR, said to her, would you mind if they're shadowing me for the day? I'm coming to see one of your vice presidents. Could they join with me? Of course. Went in the meeting and I said to him, would you mind, Alex, I've got these 2 guys joining me for the day. Can they just sit at the back? And he said, yes, of course, no problem. He engaged with them more than he engaged with me. What university are you going to? What are you studying? What do you think about? Now that's leadership. By the time we left, they were mesmerised about that business. Someone that took an interest in them, that made them feel real, listened to their voice, listened to their opinions. All the way we were driving back to our offices was their dream of working for them. Because that's not what they thought a career would be. And I think the old pyramid hierarchy, I'm not sure that's the way forward anymore.
Do you think it's because we go through school, and if we're lucky enough to go to university or onto a 3rd level in some way, that we're always striving towards that grade? And if we don't get that grade, we're not good enough.
I think you make a very good point there, that everything is about who's going to be first. But I think the thing I'm learning from my interns, I'm seeing from a new generation, is that they practice team. They're stronger together. They work in cohorts. They come together as groups. And what I've realised now, I've created an environment in where we work and with the people we advise. Nothing is best done alone anymore. And we want a healthy tension. We want to put the ideas out there. We want to put different solutions out there. The more diverse the team, the more innovative the team. If we all come from the same place, been to the same school, be it Eton, same university, be it Oxford, we end up a little bit like the Tory party, where I'm not sure we've got the differences of views that's going to give us a Brexit solution. They all think the same way. They hate it or they love it. That doesn't get you to a solution. I think what we're seeing is the power of the team. And I mean really a team. Not a bunch of lone wolves, the real pack. The strength of the pack is the wolf, the strength of the wolf is the pack. And if we can get that together, then we're unbeatable. The more isolated we are, be it by gender, by race, by location, I think we see trouble, which we have to say the dirty word again, Brexit is divisive. What's going to bring us together? It should be leadership. At a moment that we need the strongest leadership we could ever see, and I think we're seeing this in business and politically, it's not quite where it needs to be.
In the horrendous Grenfell Tower fire tragedy in West London, you were critical of Theresa May's leadership in that respect. Talk me through that.
Do you know, sometimes it takes adversity, tragedy for the real leaders to stand up. And let's remember, I'm talking leadership, not management. And leadership has no title. The biggest myth we have in Western developed societies is that leaders are only at the top of the organisation. Nonsense. Leaders are everywhere. I get the perennial question I get asked: are leaders born or are leaders made? I say neither. Leaders are found. And we find them most in times of crisis. Everyone around us, we see leaders. It's not about rank. It's not about experience. It's not about degrees at university. I tell you what it is about: influence and persuasion. Look for those who can influence and persuade without authority. They're your leaders. And at the time of the Grenfell Tower, which is local to me, so it meant something to me, and lots of the people in my environment that I grew up were deeply affected by it. There are always set piece moments when we can give people hope. And if all the leader does is give hope, they've done their job already. In times of tragedy, despair is easier than hope. When Theresa May arrived, I thought, she was late coming, first of all. Drop everything. Be there first. Let everyone know it's your top priority. It took a few days. Better late than never, I thought. It wasn't. It's better she didn't go. It was a moment to inspire, a moment to care, a moment to connect, a moment to trust, a moment to be part of something. She was aloof. She seemed frozen. She was wooden. And I think it did more harm than good. We look to Jeremy Corbyn for all his faults, and there are many, the real person turned up. It didn't need big set piece speeches. You don't have to be Martin Luther King, but you do need to be authentic. And he was. He touched, he hugged, he was available, he was amongst them. That's all you need to be. It's not rocket science.
It takes us back to the concept of leadership versus management, and management ticking all your boxes and being across, and leadership being a bit more emotional.
Yes.
Do you think that that's what we're missing in politics? I guess you could say worldwide, because we're in such a state of despair in some respects in the big countries of the world. Do you think it's that emotion that is missing at the top?
We're lucky enough that I get invited into it with some of the top leaders on the planet. And I still pinch myself to wonder what I'm doing there. But from heads of states, the biggest entrepreneurs, to Fortune 500, FTSE 100 companies. And I think crudely, there are two sorts of leader that we work with. And we tend to work with the first appointment leader, so having some help in flying the plane. What's really interesting about the chief executive's role, every other role in the business there's training and development for, apart from one, the chief executive. It's the one where there's no training, there's no development, there's nothing, just here's the keys to the office, go fly the plane. Near madness. If you're HR director, marketing director, there's training for all of you, but not the chief executive. The toughest gig on the planet. So we get called in occasionally when they want to learn how to fly the plane. They call me coach, but I'm not really a coach. I'm show, not tell. Show them how to do the job. I've been around the block so many times, I've done the job, done it with many people. We're showing them how to do it. There are two sorts of people. Those who want meticulous plan and process, a bit procedural. What do I do in this situation? What do I do here? How do I do that? And there are those who realize that there are no universal solutions. Every situation is different. You have to be authentic. And trying to encourage people to bring themselves to the party, be their authentic self. I was with a brilliant female chief executive of one of the largest retailers in the UK. And for the first time, she was getting all of her people together, 70 people together. And I'd whispered to her, if it's the first time, you're getting your top 70 VPs from around the world, why don't I interview you? No script, authentically, no simulation. No, everyone knows if you're faking it. No auto cues, let's just have a conversation. I'm going to try and ask the questions that everyone in the room would love to hear asked, but would never get the proximity or courage to do. She just said yes. We fought her internal comms, her external comms, her investor relations, everyone said no. In the end, we did it. There was a moment when she said, I said, well, how have the last couple of years been? She said, really good. I think I've empowered people more. There's more trust. And someone in the room just went, I looked around. I said, I think we heard some dissent. Does everyone agree with what she said? And someone said, no, with a dry, breaking voice. Then someone else said, definitely not. She was really uncomfortable. But she asked, share with us. These two stood up and they shared that she was a bit controlling. She'd put more processes in. They felt that their freedom to act had diminished and they couldn't authorize the things they used to. You could have heard a pin drop. She went bright red, hands getting dry. And she said, how's that come back? You made the decisions. So I'm brokering this, I'm watching this go around. And she said, my intention was to make things a little bit more efficient. I said, no, you made us feel as though you don't trust us. I brokered this conversation and it was a brilliant conversation. And the fact that she said, I did do that, that wasn't my intention. Let's change it back now. In that moment, she'd won the hearts and minds of everyone in the room. And it's the bit I don't see enough of. That's what I call going to the vulnerable edge. The fact that she was prepared to say, I got it wrong. People don't love you any less. They love you even more.
How important is it for leaders and chief executives to be vulnerable?
There was a time when the leader was Agincourt. The leader's on the white charger, King George, King Henry, King whoever. With the sword of truth, they're going to stand there, they're going to make the most amazing speech, they're going to fire up their armies, and they're going to lead them into battle, and they needed to be the bravest and the best and at the front. Those days are long gone. They're even long gone in Hollywood, we don't believe them anymore. I think today the leader needs to be something different. If I take you back to Stephen Covey, who said, the leader takes his team into the darkest jungle. Malaria, dengue fever, undergrowth, hot, sweaty, nasty. They're cutting through the undergrowth. After 4 days, he climbs up the highest tree, looks around, and he says, guys, sorry, wrong jungle. How do you think the people feel? Well, they actually feel better. They've been brave enough to get up to the tree and say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. People believe you more credibility. It's no longer feasible for someone to get everything right all the time, Mr. Trump, is it? Demonstrate a little bit of vulnerability, a little bit of humility, a little bit of humanity. We are not perfect. The more perfect we seem to be as leaders, the more distant we are to our people. The more human we are and demonstrate that we're not perfect, then people will trust you even more and try for you even harder and share with you. I want you to be like me. I want to be like you. If you're on some pedestal and you do nothing wrong and you never come down and touch us and share with us. So the leader that has lunch in the canteen with everyone, it's a very powerful message. The leader that walks into the reception and remembers people's first names, it's a very powerful message. The leader that sends you a little note asking you, how was your son's graduation? You know, they've got you for life. The leader that doesn't remember your name and walks past you and is always staring on their phone, if you send them an email, you never get a response. I don't need to carry on.
There was quite a high-profile story, business story going around last week where quite a high-profile CEO has stepped down. The company was going for IPO, but there was a lot of controversy around the valuation of the company, and he just thought it was a bit of a mess and he has stepped down.
That's the most generous summary I've heard. There is another summary, and we're talking WeWork here.
Yeah.
Right, but earlier today, the chief executive, Mark Dixon of IWG, their biggest competitor, was on. with a valuation that was much smaller than we were. But he said something I think that was really interesting. We make profit. Sorry to be old-fashioned, but we make profit. This hype-driven, charismatic, superstar-led, rock star type chief executive, those days are long gone.
My question was going to be, was it brave for him to step down and a bit selfless? But
late. It was late. Let's be very clear. I think the hype that built around it, valued at 47 billion. When I see a business valued at 47 billion and week before IPO it's dropped to 20 billion, then to 10 billion, 60% of voting shares are controlled by the chief executive, who's sold the brand called We to the company for 5 million, who's sold $700 million worth of shares, and they're still nowhere near profit. Where are the heads of these investors? I think the analysts called it right, but the investment community needs the biggest kick.
the property companies also at fault as well, because maybe due diligence wasn't done. You know, they had to get a sign off to rent.
When a bandwagon is approaching, everyone jumps on who wants to make a profit. I don't think you can fault that. But I do question the board of directors of WeWork. I question those who invested billions. SoftBank, what was SoftBank doing, investing into it? I think these questions are worth asking. There are many people who have lost tons of money. And he was particularly charismatic, but sold WeWork as a technology business. What? It's just a rental business. I think what's falling out of favour and what's becoming passé is asking tough questions. It's incumbent on everyone. And I think I said to you before, never move so far away you cannot hear a dissenting voice. Do not be afraid to have someone in your team who asks those questions. And we think we all would love a fantastic, charismatic, visionary chief executive, but it's incumbent on the team to have people who aren't afraid to ask questions. There's a lesson here, and it's a lesson on reputation. The first lesson of reputation is, your reputation has nothing to do with what you think it is. Your reputation is what other people think it is. I don't think he's going to get a job as a chief executive ever again.
Can you explain a bit more what reputation management?
As the old saying goes, it takes us years to build a quality reputation. It can go up in smoke in seconds. And the toughest thing is, we try everything to manage our reputation, but it's not what we think it is, it's what other people, the outside world, thinks it is. And in the last couple of years, we've seen businesses go up in smoke in seconds. We've even seen PR companies go in seconds. And now, in a world of constant scrutiny, there is no hiding place, and anyone and everyone can ask the questions that you could hide from before. Reputation is everything. And I got involved in a particular space with the chief executive. And there was a time when it was impossible to speak to the chief executive. They were barricaded away somewhere, hidden away, never bring them out. Never bring them out. The most dangerous thing, the best thing you'd advise a chief executive for their reputation, say nothing. Ever, never. Those halcyon days are long gone now. You have to be accountable. You have to be available. We want to hear your voice. Before it was once in a while on radio, maybe in the Financial Times. Everyone, your colleagues, your customers want to know you. They want to trust you. And they do want to trust you. But the old days of being fed lines, anodyne lines that mean nothing, standing up with a face as though you're taking a prison shot somewhere, and no one gets to know you, doesn't work anymore. We want to know you. We have the right to know you. I'm a customer, I want to know what you stand for. I'm a shareholder, I want to know what your values are. I'm a colleague, I want to know who I work for. And the more you bring yourself and your reputation to me, the more I trust you, the more I'll do for you. We saw Oxfam for 100 years doing the right thing. For 100 years, one of the most powerful international charities you could ever see. Reputation went up in smoke in seconds. When it was shared what they were doing in Haiti, some of those stories will never go away. I'm not sure. There are so many people who will never give any more money to Oxfam.
Taking into account Oxfam up to that point and the work that they have done, do you think it's fair that their reputation went up in smoke?
Yes. Reputations are hard earned, but they need to be protected. Circumstances change, values don't. If you change your values, you're in trouble. Bell Pottinger, who advised people on PR, an outstanding firm at what they did, got themselves messed up in South Africa. In the scandal around the Guptas and Jacob Zuma, they gave some very difficult advice, wrong advice, dangerous advice. Within 2 weeks, they'd gone. I mean, gone. And their business allegedly was reputation management. Because I say it again, it's not what you think your reputation is, it's what others think. So we've got involved with working with chief executives, making them accessible, making them real, giving them a story, a credible story, helping them to face up to today's agendas, where good old Greta, she's on her podium and she has a point of view. And it's a very strong point of view. No chief executive should have the nerve to ignore her. But how do you engage? What's your message? What's the platform? How do you deliver it? This morning I heard the chief executive of Unilever, Alan Jope, make a very credible case that I think it was in 20, 30 years' time, Unilever are going to cut their use of plastic by 50%. It didn't feel to me that he was reading a script. He just spoke. It was just from the heart. And it was credible. And I was having breakfast and it made me stop and listen. I thought, he didn't have to do that. That wasn't a commitment that he had to make. And he used just simple language, simple stories. It was very, very compelling.
With your crystal ball, thinking about value, and we've talked about a number of companies there, what does value look like in a company in 5, 10, 15 years' time? Because if we see that, okay, they're up on a platform, there's no, people don't really have any sympathy if you mess up as a company now, and your employees are coming in to you with a different set of values. It doesn't matter what you're going to offer me at the end of the month in terms of pay. What does value look like in a company?
It's a really, really great question. And I think there's value and there's values, and they're linked. The business of business is no longer just business. I think that's so important today.
By business, you mean the bottom line?
You better care, yes. Your license to operate isn't just about your profit and loss account. It's not your balance sheet. It's not just to your shareholders. Now, this is probably the most difficult conversation that's taking place in the boardrooms of UK PLC today. There is one school of thought. All these fluffy things about community care, climate change. Come on, guys. If you lose sight of your profit, everything else is gone. There is another school of thought that says we better care for those people who we serve, care for the communities we serve. Our license to operate will disappear if we don't. And sound business, to me today, if you really want to maximize on your value, then you better embrace your values. And we've got a generation of people who ask really tough questions. At the weekend, reading through the weekend press, there was a strike at Amazon. Now, the day of unions and striking, we never saw that in Silicon Valley. You can't imagine that a workforce would go on strike. But they were talking about some of the working conditions here in the UK, in some of their warehouses, that the conditions were prehistoric. Now, Amazon's an amazing organization. It's done some things that no one ever thought could be done, but you better do the basics. They've created shareholder value. They're one of the wealthiest companies and one of the biggest wealth creators on the planet. But you know what? Reputations can disappear in seconds. What I saw in those warehouses, and they were talking about minimum wage, abhorrent conditions, and people, and I just remember the canteens, that the food was inedible, etc., etc., etc. What am I talking about today? I'm not talking about the amazing innovation at Amazon. I'm talking about how their people feel. If they're not careful, that's going to crucify their reputation. I want to see Jeff Bezos, who is the first or second or third wealthiest man on the planet. Surely he has a point of view. I want to hear it. And I think lots of his colleagues are demanding to hear it. But you know, all our chief executives need a little bit of help. Because let me say it again, there's no training or development program that's made for chief executives. And we've spent a lot of time trying to help them. It's the loneliest job in the world. It's the toughest job in the world. It's the most critiqued job in the world. They have to be everywhere all the time. If you look at the schedule of a chief executive, you won't believe the demands made on their time. They cannot have off days. There are days when they've had the biggest row ever with their 21-year-old. And the 21-year-old stormed out, packed their bags, and they're going. They still got to face the town hall in the morning, 4 town halls on that day. And they better be cheery, they better be up for it, they better have a few gags, have a few laughs, and they better shake hands and remember the names of the people. This is tough. How do you do that? And then you're going to face the press, you're going to face investor relations. You're going to meet the regulators. You're going to have to interview 3 people. You've got to give a reprimand to one of your people. And your PA is having some real difficulties in her marriage. You're dealing with all of this. And you're on a flight to New York tomorrow. Because you're facing competitive inquiry. It's non-stop. And some of you, it was announced this morning, HSBC are going to let 10,000 people go out of a workforce of 258,000. They've got an interim chief executive who's been bold enough to make that move. Guess what his day is going to be like today?
There is that saying, it's lonely at the top. So what do you say to...
It's rarefied, it's lonely, it's dangerous, it's harsh, but it's also the best job in the world.
And what counsel do you give chief executives?
Do you know, sometimes you're the sounding board, you're the critical friend, you're the person that they can shout at. Sometimes you have to shout at them. Sometimes I feel like I'm their counsellor. Sometimes I feel I'm the angry shareholder. At times, I'm a member of their team who's going to say, we haven't seen you for some time. But more than anything else, I'm helping them think about what do they have to do, how are they going to do it, and how are they going to get through the day. And every single day is different. I keep dreaming of getting the call from the chief executive when things are going well. I'm still waiting.
Can this advice be gotten from a book?
No, forget that. Forget that. So imagine the variety I'm sharing with you about the chief executive's day. How's a book going to help you do that? And the constantly changing world that they live in today, where, do you know what the fastest growing business in the world is today? TikTok. Do you know, I was with one of my chief executives leading a big digital agency. He didn't know what TikTok was. None of his executive team knew what TikTok was. So what he decided to do, he asked his 13-year-old son, he's the only person who knew what TikTok was. So he said to his 13-year-old son, will you come to our executive meeting next week and tell the rest of my team what TikTok is? Social media, video-driven social media, growing like Topsy. The day of the executive meeting, he gets his 13-year-old son up and they're getting ready. He's coming to the office. He's just going to do 5-10 minutes, tell him what TikTok is. As he's getting ready, he hears someone in the bathroom reading the same thing, repeat themselves. He opens the door, it's his son. He's written cue cards and he's practicing in the mirror because that's what he sees his dad do before an executive meeting. The exact opposite of what he wanted him to do, come and speak from the heart. But what did he see his dad do? Speak with cue cards. It's so lonely there. This particular chief, he said to me, why didn't I know about TikTok? Calm down, you can't know everything. Why didn't I know about TikTok? No, the team can. Why didn't I know about it? What if I was challenged by it? What if? No, as long as someone in your team knows about it. There was a time when the boss had to know everything. Today, what I say to them, and this is the concept behind my latest book, Spike, is what are the 2 or 3 things you're fantastic at? Now, how do we ensure that the team balances out all the things you're not so good at? I'm not talking applied learning. It's not about you need to know about chemistry, physics, geography, but what are the things you need in the team? We need a great communicator. I still don't understand why Theresa May would murder herself when she was one of the worst speakers you've ever seen. She had Amber Rudd, one of the most compelling speakers you've ever seen. Let her do it. Maybe you've got someone who's really good with people. Maybe someone who's really good at the detail. Maybe someone who's good at completing and finishing. Maybe someone is the best listener. When we all come together, we're unbeatable. There was a time when we expected the leader to be so broad. It's no longer feasible. The team can be that broad.
Goes back to what we were talking about the leadership being vulnerable.
I can't do this, but my team can. Watch us. And it brings in the word we, not I. And it's all about the team. And I think when we get into an environment where you've got the team that's built for you, and it is built for you, the biggest job I have to do when I commence working with a chief executive is ensure that team is built for them. When people inherit a team, that may not be your team. And there's going to be change. New leader means change. And if I bring it out into sports, it's where it's best, I think. And as a crazy Chelsea fan, I look at what Liverpool have done. Jurgen Klopp is German. But he needed to understand the history and the background of the city of Liverpool. It took him 3 years. Now, it's not just the players, it's not just the fans, it's all of the stakeholders, it's a global fan base. He is the living embodiment of that team, but look at his backroom team, completely changed. It's his team now. And if he should leave, everything needs to be under scrutiny. It needs to be built around the leader. I'm not sure that it's in any way about individuals anymore. The reputation is the team, not the individual. It's too testing, too tough, too challenging for one person to own it all on their own. But the way we bring our leaders up, and it's quite interesting because I see this a lot with entrepreneurs as well. We still bring our boys up to be brave and courageous, and our girls to be perfect. So the boys think they can answer everything. They'll put their hands up even if they don't know what the answer is. I can do that job, just give it to me. And we still see our girls being so brutally honest. No, I can do this, but I can't do that. I can do a bit of this, but I can't do that. And when I put it in under the lens of entrepreneurship, there just aren't as many female entrepreneurs as there should be. And those that are there do not get the support that perhaps the men do. Back in the day, I did a series for the BBC called Mind of a Millionaire. And one of the things that we observed there, that the only evidence of serial entrepreneurs we found were male. We did a survey of everyone in the UK. We decided as entrepreneurs born or made, so we had to create crudely a definition of entrepreneur, which is self-made millionaire. 70,000 self-made millionaires in the UK out of a population of 66 million. Out of those 70,000, the women we found, there was something that will stick with me forever. Number one, they were older, much older than the men. Tended to be late 30s when they had their first go. So they built up a skill base, had knowledge in a particular and defined area, and then went in their late 30s. Men were going at 16, 17. Second thing, all the women only played in an area they had skills and knowledge in. Third thing, they only ever did it once. So that's crude statistics, but it's still really true today. And the bit that I would like to change is the investment community needs to view women better than they view men. We'll say yes to everything. Of course we can do that. Oh, I forgot that experience. And women need to be just that little bit bolder. And I don't think they need to confine themselves to one particular area. The generic skills, the generic innate ability lends itself to far more. For our world of entrepreneurs to work so much better, we just need so many more female entrepreneurs. They do things with a different care, different mindset, and they take more people with them.
Isn't it important, though, that men help them along the way?
It would be a first. Yes, it would be great. And I think it's the concept of team again. That, you know, nothing is best done alone anymore, even entrepreneurship. Put a team around you. Have the right investor support around you. Have the right advisors around you. I suppose where I'm challenging now is we had the role of the individual, the leader as the demagogue, the leader as the one everyone looks up to. No, I think the leader today is an essential part of the team. And let's see them from within, not from without. Not talking at us, but living with us. And not being able to answer every question, but sharing every issue. Creating an environment where others can succeed. And I think good leaders create followers, great leaders create leaders.
Yeah, we've covered a lot. But just lastly, going back to what we actually began speaking about and management versus leadership. If someone is watching and they're trying to figure out what industry to go into, where they're in a leadership role themselves, would you say the most important question that they have to ask themselves is the why?
Do you know that's a fabulous place to start? I want to share a real story. One of my interns is from London, from Hounslow. He's of Indian origin. His father would say Kenyan, but it's of Indian origin. And he'd spent the summer working with me, 3 months working with me, and I asked him whether I could come and have dinner with his parents. So I went down to meet his father and his stepmother in Hounslow. And we had a fabulous Indian meal. And his father was sitting there, and his father said, "My grandfather did a master's. My father did a master's. I did a master's. So therefore, my son is going to do a master's." And I said to him, "I don't think so." All hell was about to break loose. I said, "I really don't think so. I think this has got something else about him." And he said, "But this has got to be the chosen path." Whose chosen path? Whose chosen path? His son is sitting in a cosmopolitan office in multicultural London with opportunities galore. When I left university, unemployment in the UK was 17.5%. Today it's about 4 or 5%. This is project full capacity, full employment. He has choices. And he can go in many different ways. I shared with his father, I've had to convince him to go back and finish his last year of uni. He's ready. The 3 months he's had with us, he's ready, he's capable, and he's hungry. And there's nothing standing in his way. I do believe it's worth him finishing his degree, but maybe not for the reasons you see. I think what the university is giving him is discipline, the ability to research, to present, to work within a team, to manage his own time, to all those, but not necessarily the content. The content is out of date as soon as he gets it. We had a lively discussion, but I think his father wanted him to do things for all the good reasons, because he wants to be proud of him, but he didn't listen to his son, who has a view, who has values, who has dreams, and who is prepared to take ownership of his own career. I wonder today whether the biggest gift that we have is to listen. When was the last time we listened to someone who is a teenager? When's the last time we listened to someone who's not got manager in their job title? When's the last time we've listened to someone who is in their early 20s? They may well have views, values that can educate us, inform us, and maybe help us break out of those of our vintage, where it's all about education, all about experience. I wonder today whether experience is just a little bit overrated.
I guess a key message, you can always go back to the drawing board of life.
Keep that drawing board with you.
René Carayol, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dev. Really great talking to you.